You didn't stumble here by accident. This isn't just another video, not just more words on a screen. Something brought you here. A whisper beneath the noise, a pause in the chaos. A quiet tug that said, "Stop, listen." You may not know why, but something in you does. Maybe you've been sensing it. A subtle shift, a restlessness, a question you couldn't quite name. The way you look at the world, it's been changing. What once made sense no longer satisfies. What once comforted now feels too small. And so you began searching, not for answers, but for something real. This is not about fixing you. You're not broken. This is not about convincing you. You already feel it. This is an invitation to remember, to reconnect, to reclaim what's always been yours. No pressure, no timeline, just a breath, a moment, a beginning. Because when the soul is ready, the teachings appear, not to overwhelm, but to awaken. So if your heart feels something stirring, trust it, you didn't find this, it found you. Some truths don't arrive like thunder. They whisper, softly, as if they've always been there, waiting for you to finally be still enough to hear them. This is one of those truths. Everything is mind. The Kybalion doesn't shout it. It simply opens with a principle so quiet, yet so revolutionary. It shakes the foundation of everything we've been taught. That reality is not made of matter, or objects, or chance events. It is made of thought. Consciousness is the blueprint. Mind is the builder. And what you call life is the result. You felt it, haven't you? Those moments when your inner world seems to ripple outward, shaping the way people treat you, the way opportunities unfold, the very energy in a room. You change your mood and suddenly the world responds. It's not coincidence. It's not magic. It's mentalism. Every belief you hold, every image you rehearse, every fear you feed, it plants itself into the soil of the universe. And with time, it grows. Not because you manifested it with force, but because the universe, like a mirror, reflects whatever you consistently focus on. Now pause here. This doesn't mean you're to blame for every storm in your life, but it does mean you hold the key to interpreting the weather. The world doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. And what you are is the echo of your deepest thoughts, patterns, and expectations. Most of these run in the background like invisible scripts, inherited from family, shaped by culture, rehearsed through repetition. But when you slow down, really slow down, you can begin to hear them. And once you hear them, you can begin to choose. Mentalism is not a rule book. It's a revelation that your mind is not a prison. It's a portal to suffering or to transformation. You don't need to force your way to a better life. You need to sit, observe, and remember. Thought is creative. Emotion gives it charge. Attention gives it direction. So if you're living in a world that feels heavy, chaotic, or stuck, don't just change your circumstances. Change the mind that created them, but not through pressure, through presence. Like a lake settling after a storm, your awareness clears when you stop stirring it. From there, insight arises not from books, not from gurus, but from within. Because the mind that creates your world can also renew it. The ancient sages knew this. They didn't just study thought, they honored it. They shaped their inner landscape like gardeners, knowing that sooner or later it would bloom outward. And so can you, not by being perfect, not by thinking positively every second, but by coming home to the source, the quiet intelligence behind the noise. Mentalism doesn't ask for belief, it asks for curiosity. Curiosity about the thoughts that built your life. Curiosity about what else might be possible if you released them. Curiosity about the space between stories where something new can begin. So begin. Let this be the moment you remember. Reality doesn't start out there, it starts in here. And you are the one holding the pen. You walk into a room, and without a word, something in you tightens. The faces are kind, the lighting is warm, but still your chest feels heavy. You smile anyway, because that's what you do. Later, you leave wondering why it felt so hard to be yourself. Now imagine this. What if the room wasn't the problem? What if it simply reflected something already stirring inside you? The Kybalion's second principle, correspondence, offers a truth both poetic and piercing. As within, so without. As above, so below. This isn't just spiritual poetry. It's a key to understanding your life. The people you meet, the patterns you repeat, the crises you can't escape. They're not random, they're mirrors, showing you what your conscious mind hasn't yet dared to see. And that's not meant to shame you, it's meant to free you. Because once you understand that outer experiences echo inner states, you stop chasing surface solutions and start listening. A partner's distance might reflect your buried self-doubt. A series of rejections might echo your fear of being seen. A breakthrough, too, mirrors your readiness to receive. You begin to ask better questions. What is this moment showing me about myself? What belief is being mirrored here? What energy am I unconsciously broadcasting? This is where healing begins, not in changing the mirror, but in softening toward the one who's reflected there. You, not the perfect version, not the spiritual version, just the you who's learning, falling, trying, becoming. When you look at your life through this lens, even pain becomes sacred. That fight you keep having with your parent, your partner, your child. It's not just about the words exchanged. It's about the wound beneath them, asking to be seen, loved, transformed. Even the delays, the almosts, the dead ends, they carry information, not punishment, not failure, but insight. The universe, in its quiet brilliance, doesn't always speak with words. It speaks with reflections. And the more you resist the image, the more distorted it becomes. But when you pause, when you breathe, when you whisper, I see you to the chaos. As something shifts, you stop feeling like life is happening to you and begin to sense it's happening for you, through you, with you. This isn't about blame. It's about reclaiming authorship. The world outside will always move, but how you meet it, that's where your power lives. So let the mirror be your teacher. Let the triggers be invitations. Let the beauty be permission. Because what's within you is vast, and the outer world is just always trying to remind you of that. Look closely. Not with judgment, but with awe. What you see around you is what's been waiting to be seen within you. Have you ever walked into someone's presence and felt instantly lighter without a word spoken? Or met someone whose smile looked genuine but left you inexplicably uneasy? That's vibration. Not what's said, what's sensed. The Kybalion tells us, nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. You are not a fixed identity, not a frozen being. You are rhythm in motion. A field of frequencies, thoughts, emotions, memories, sensations pulsing with life. And that frequency, it's not just private, it's creative. Your inner state radiates outward like ripples in a pond, quiet but powerful. It shapes what you notice, what you attract, what you unconsciously choose. It's not personal, it's energetic. This is why two people can enter the same room, read the same words, face the same moment, and one feels inspired while the other feels threatened. They're not reacting to reality itself. They're reacting to it through their own vibration. So here's the deeper truth. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. Not because the universe is testing you, but because it mirrors the energy you're broadcasting most consistently. And yet this doesn't mean you have to fake high vibes. You've tried that, haven't you? Affirmations that feel hollow. Gratitude lists that ache. Smiling when your chest feels tight. That's not alignment, that's avoidance. The law of vibration doesn't ask you to pretend. It asks you to become honest, to feel what you're truly vibrating, not just what you wish you were. Because only when you see the frequency can you shift it. And here's the hope in that. Vibration is not fixed, it's fluid, malleable, alive. You can shift your frequency not by fighting your sadness, but by allowing it to breathe until it reveals what it's trying to protect. You can shift by choosing new thoughts gently, not forcefully, by returning to the body, by slowing the breath, by standing barefoot in the grass and remembering you are not separate. Because resonance happens not through force, but through harmony. Think of music. When one string vibrates at a certain pitch, another nearby string begins to hum. That's entrainment. That's coherence. That's what happens when you align inside. So don't rush to raise your vibe. Sit with it, listen, honor the one you're in. Then, when you're ready, choose something softer, something more truthful, not to escape where you are, but to return to who you really are beneath it all. Because your vibration is not just energy, it's a compass. And the life you long for, it's already humming at a certain frequency. The question is not, how do I get there? The question is, what do I need to let go of so I can tune in? Let the shift be subtle. Let it be sacred. Let it begin now. You've probably heard it before, that everything in this life has its opposite. But what if that wasn't just a poetic truth, but a doorway to real healing? The Kybalion's principle of polarity whispers an ancient secret. Everything is dual but not separate. Hot and cold, just two ends of the same spectrum. Joy and sorrow, different shades of the same longing. Light and shadow, different phases of the same truth unfolding in time. We've been taught to divide, to label, to fear one side and chase the other. But polarity doesn't demand division. It invites integration. That tightness in your chest, that voice in your head saying you're not enough, that's not darkness to run from. It's light, unseen, unrecognized, still waiting to be met. And when you lean into it gently, honestly, you begin to understand. The parts of you once called bad were never evil. They were just unheard, unfelt, unloved. The anger that flares isn't there to shame you. It's the part of you that's learned to roar when your boundaries have been crossed too many times. The fear, it's the instinct that tried to keep you safe before you even knew how to speak. What you call shadow is not your enemy. It's the history of your becoming. The law of polarity doesn't ask you to choose one side. It asks you to recognize both, and in doing so, transcend them. It's why healing isn't about being positive all the time. It's about becoming whole. When you acknowledge your inner winter, you understand the tenderness of spring. When you stop demonizing doubt, you see how it clears space for deeper knowing. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It happens in quiet moments, in breaths taken instead of judgments cast, in soft questions like, "What are you trying to tell me?" instead of hard ones like, "What's wrong with me?" Suddenly, the part of you that's been aching to be seen relaxes, and light rushes in, not because you forced it, but because you stopped holding it back. This is not the kind of healing that glitters. It's the kind that hums, the kind that whispers. You don't have to be perfect to be free. And as you learn to hold your polarities, your rage and your peace, your chaos and your clarity, you stop swinging between extremes. You begin to rest in the space between. That space is where truth lives, and where love begins, Because nothing is just one thing, not even you. Some days you wake up and everything flows, ideas land, conversations feel easy. The world hums in harmony with your steps, and then it changes. Without warning, the clarity fades. You feel foggy, unmotivated, as if something invisible has pulled the tide back from the shore. And in that moment, a quiet panic sets in. What did I do wrong? Why am I losing momentum? But what if you're not falling behind? What if you're just in rhythm? The Kybalion's law of rhythm reveals this. Everything rises and falls. All things move in and out like the ocean breathes. Just like the moon pulls on the tide, your life flows in natural waves. Inhale, exhale. Bloom, rest. Clarity, pause, not because you're inconsistent, but because you're alive. Modern life teaches us to chase constancy. Always be on. Always rise, but nature doesn't obey that command, and neither should you. Understanding rhythm is not about predicting the future. It's about honoring the pulse of the present. When the energy is high, ride the wave. When it recedes, return to your center. Not everything that slows is failing. Not everything that pauses is wrong. Even the tide steps back before it returns with force. The moments you call stuck might just be spaces of gestation, where clarity is softening underground, where your roots are deepening quietly, powerfully. And when you trust that, when you stop fighting the stillness, you find a kind of peace most people never taste. Because most people only feel safe in the climb. But rhythm asks you to feel safe in the fall too. This law doesn't just operate around you. It moves through your emotions, your relationships, your breath, your seasons of fire and your seasons of water. So the next time life slows down, ask not what's wrong, but what is resting, what is waiting for the right time to rise again. Because just like waves, just like breath, just like day folding into night, you are allowed to ebb, and you are destined to flow. Let this truth wrap around you like a warm tide. You don't need to chase your rhythm. At first, it feels random. The heartbreak, the job you didn't get, the moment of joy that came from nowhere, we call it luck. Fate, karma, we say, that just happened. But the Kybalion says otherwise. Nothing just happens. Every moment is the result of a cause seen or unseen. Every ripple begins somewhere. The law of cause and effect isn't here to blame you. It's here to awaken you. Because here's the truth most people never realize. You're either at the mercy of causes outside you, or you become a conscious cause yourself. When you complain about your life but take no action, you're reacting. When you repeat the same patterns in relationships, you're living under old effects. But when you pause, ask why something truly happened, and choose differently next time, you shift, you move from pawn to player, from effect to cause. This doesn't mean you control everything. It means you start participating with clarity. A thought today becomes a mood tomorrow. A mood becomes a habit. A habit becomes your life. And yet it begins so quietly. A choice to speak kindly. A breath before reacting. A vision held when no one else believes. Suddenly, you're creating ripples, not chasing them. To live by this law is to stop waiting for permission. To stop hoping something will change. To recognize that what you water grows, and what you ignore fades. Every step, every word, every silence has weight. That might sound heavy, until you remember the beauty of it. If you created this moment, you can create the next one differently. It's not about blame, it's about power. You are not a victim of unseen forces. You are a thread in the weave, and you are allowed to weave something new. This isn't philosophy. It's a quiet revolution, one moment of consciousness at a time. So the next time something just happens, ask, what caused this? And more importantly, what will I cause next? Close your eyes. Feel the silence behind your thoughts. There is a pulse there, not just a heartbeat, but two forces moving inside you. Not man or woman, not biology, but energy. Masculine, feminine, both alive in you always. The Kybalion's law of gender teaches this. Creation needs two poles projecting and receiving, acting and becoming. You carry both. The masculine within you is direction, logic, will. It sets goals. It speaks clearly. It moves with purpose. The feminine is flow, intuition, feeling. It listens, senses, and opens to the unseen. Most of us were taught to favor one over the other, to worship reason, silence emotion, or to feel deeply but fear choosing. But without both, something stays incomplete. Ideas without intuition become rigid. Emotions without structure become chaos. When you begin to unite the two within you, magic happens. Not the kind you see in movies, but the quiet, powerful kind that turns visions into reality. You start hearing your inner voice and trusting it. You start taking action, but guided by something deeper. You become the bridge between what is felt and what is done. Gender here is not about roles. It's about rhythm, when to step forward, when to receive, when to hold space, when to act. This is why your healing isn't just about one side. It's about reunion. When your inner feminine feels safe, your creativity flows like water. When your inner masculine feels seen, your decisions come with calm clarity. Together they build, they birth, they restore. Look at nature. The earth feminine holds the seed. The sun masculine awakens it. Together life begins. So too inside you. When you no longer shame softness and no longer fear structure, you return to your true center. Balance isn't stillness. It's a quiet dance. A sacred conversation between two parts of the same whole. And in that union, you don't just understand yourself better. You begin to create from a place that feels like home. Transformation doesn't happen in epiphanies. It happens in tea breaks, in how you answer the phone, in what you whisper to yourself on the way home. The Kybalion isn't just meant to be read, it's meant to be lived. You don't need to remember all 7 principles every hour. You just need to remember one today. Monday, mentalism. Begin here. Notice what your mind is creating before the world does. When you catch yourself spiraling, pause. Ask, is this thought building or breaking? Today, you become the architect of your mental house. Tuesday, correspondence. As within, so without. Your room, your routine, your reactions, they're mirrors. Don't fix the mirror. Tend to what's inside. And watch the reflection soften. Wednesday, vibration. Everything moves. So do you. Check your frequency not with your head, but with your breath. Are you tense or flowing? Uplift not by pretending, but by choosing one thing that makes you feel real joy. That's alignment. Thursday, polarity. Notice what you call bad. Zoom out. What's the other side? That person who annoyed you, what did they reveal about your edges? That fear, what desire lives beneath it? Today, shadow is not your enemy. It's your translator. Friday, rhythm. Feel your wave. Some days are oceans. Some are puddles. Ride it. Let go of needing to be high vibe all the time. Just don't let the low tide define you. Rest. It's part of the pulse. Saturday, cause and effect. Take one moment you didn't like this week. Trace it back. Where did it begin? Now cause something different. Write the message. Set the boundary. Shift the thread. Sunday, gender. A blend. Feel what wants to flow through you today. Is it a day to plan, act, build masculine? Or receive, feel, and restore feminine? let both dance, and see what beauty is born. This isn't a strict system, it's a soft map. A week-long whisper to come back to your power gently. You don't have to be perfect. You don't need incense or silence. You just need sincerity. Over time, something shifts. Not in the sky, in your nervous system, your relationships, your mornings. This is how the sacred becomes ordinary, how universal laws become your own lived rhythm. One law, one breath, one day at a time. Have you ever looked around and thought, why am I here again? Same emotion, same type of relationship, same stuckness. You've read the books, done the work. So why this familiar discomfort again? It's tempting to think you've failed, slipped back, lost progress, but maybe that's not true. Maybe life isn't a circle, maybe it's a spiral. Yes, you may come back to a similar place, but this time you're seeing it from a new angle. Before, you reacted. Now you pause. Before, you ran. Now you sit with it. That's growth. Quiet, invisible growth. Spiritual awakening is not a straight line, and it's not a finish line either. It's a returning. Each time with more presence, just like the seasons. Winter doesn't mean the trees failed. It means they're preparing deepening. When you find yourself in an old pattern, ask, what do I see now that I didn't before? That's your spiral. That's your ascent. Sometimes the same pain returns, not because you're broken, but because you're strong enough now to meet it differently. This is how healing works, not by erasing the past, but by relating to it with new eyes. Even your breath repeats. Inhale, exhale again and again, yet each breath is new, a fresh moment, a fresh choice. If you're in a loop, pause, not to escape it, but to see what part of you is asking to be held. Because life doesn't test you, it echoes. What you're ready to complete, it brings back gently, then louder, until you no longer fear the sound. This is the wisdom of rhythm, of karma, of spiritual maturity. So next time the pattern returns, greet it like an old teacher. Ask what it came to show you this time, and then walk forward, not in a circle, but in a spiral, upward, always upward. Spiritual language is beautiful. It can sound like poetry, feel like truth, wrap your confusion in the comfort of meaning. But sometimes, it's not a doorway, it's a disguise. Not every awakening is real. Some are clever ways to escape. We call it letting go, but really we're avoiding the pain. We say it's not aligned, but maybe it just scared us. We talk about raising our vibration, but deep down we're afraid to sit with grief. Here's the paradox. Real awakening doesn't always feel light. Sometimes it feels raw, messy, uncertain, because waking up isn't about floating above. It's about sinking into truth. And truth, at first, can sting. It tells you you're angry, still bitter, still hurt by things you said were healed. And that's okay. That's more than okay. That's honest. And honesty is where alchemy begins. Spiritual bypassing happens when we use light to avoid the dark. When we memorize quotes but forget to cry. When we meditate but never confront. When we bless and release too quickly. Before the wound has had a chance to speak. But pain ignored becomes pain repeated. What you don't feel, you recycle. So here's the gentle invitation. Can you pause the mantras? Can you sit with the ache without fixing it? Not to drown in it, but to meet it, to listen. Real transformation isn't always graceful. Sometimes it looks like crying on the kitchen floor. Sometimes it sounds like saying, I don't know what to do. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is admit you're scared. Awakening is not about being high vibe. It's about being real. Real with your joy, real with your rage, real with the small parts of you still learning how to trust. The Kybalion says, the all is mind. But your mind includes your shadow, too. You are not meant to escape your humanity. You are meant to integrate it. The goal isn't to ascend. It's to descend deep enough into yourself that you remember you were never broken, just waiting to be seen. So ask again, are you awakening or avoiding? And whatever the answer, can you meet it without shame? Because even in the avoidance, something sacred is asking to be felt, and that might be the first true awakening of all. You've read the words, you've had the chills, you've whispered to yourself, this is what I've been looking for. And then comes the silence. No lightning bolt, no divine diploma, just life, the same bills, the same conversations. The same you but not quite, because something inside has shifted. And now the question hangs in the air, what now? This is where the path of the initiate begins, not with robes or rituals, but with responsibility. To observe, to question, to respond, not react. Being an initiate doesn't mean you know everything. It means you've agreed to stop living asleep. It means that when anger flares, you ask, what mirror is this holding up for me? It means that when the world says rush, you listen for the rhythm underneath. It means you understand the 7 Hermetic laws are not just ideas. They are invitations. Each law a thread, each thread part of a design, and you're learning to weave, but make no mistake, this is not the easy path. It's the honest one. You'll be asked to unlearn, to pause before you speak, to trust what your body knows before your mind agrees. You'll learn that knowing is not the same as being. That wisdom isn't about saying the right things, but doing the hard things when no one is watching. The initiate walks with humility, because the deeper you go, the more you realize how much you don't know. And yet, you keep going, because something inside you remembers you didn't come here to perform, you came here to become. Becoming means showing up. When the ego wants to hide, it means loving the part of you that's still scared, still clumsy, still searching. To be an initiate is not to rise above humanity, but to live it fully, intentionally, awake. So what now? Now you live like it matters. You listen like the universe is speaking directly to you. You move like your presence creates waves because it does. And when you forget, when you fall, you begin again. That's the path, not perfect, but real. And in that realness, you become the very thing you once sought. So here we are, not at the end, but at a beginning that feels quieter, deeper, more your own. You came seeking answers, laws, keys to a door that seemed locked. But now maybe you see, there was no lock, only forgetting. What you've searched for was never hidden from you. It was simply waiting, patient, like a seed in winter. The Kybalion didn't give you anything new. It helped you remember that your thoughts shape the shapeable, that your breath is part of the rhythm, that your emotions are not flaws but guides, that your dualities can become wholeness, and more than anything, that you are not just in this universe. You are of it. You don't need to fight for worthiness. You've always been enough. The laws don't demand perfection. They invite presence. So as you step back into your life, may you walk with a quieter strength, not louder, not holier, just real. And when you forget, when you fall asleep again, you remember. That too is part of the rhythm. The truth is not out there. The truth is you, and it always was.